Simon, as you know and I know, many people in football call Brendan something of a diplomat. Is that diplomatic speak we've just heard?
I think it's realistic, isn't it? I mean, it's an interesting... I'm very interested to see what Martin's view on it, because obviously he left Celtic and had done a very good job at Celtic. He went to Celtic for a reason, because he needed to perhaps get himself back into focus after his demise at Liverpool and did it and built Celtic up and achieved a lot of things with them. And a lot of Celtic fans feel that he left at a time, in the middle of the season, that was disappointing for them. So going back is an interesting one for me, because it's a career... I mean, I know Celtic are a big club, but he managed in the Premier League. Clearly, he wanted to manage in the Premier League, and clearly Celtic enabled him to recalibrate and to not so much redeem himself, but to put himself back into focus as a manager that people would want to have managing your club in the Premier League. Now he's going back to Celtic.
But they know what they're getting, Simon. That's the thing.
They certainly do. If we take aside some of the rancour that might come out of certain people's ira to the fact that he wanted to advance his career, there's two things. You've got to remember that Brendan Rodgers came in and did a very good job and pretty much won everything that was available to win. They didn't go deep in Europe, but you've also got to price into the reality of that's slightly changed now, because they're now qualifying into the Champions League. They're getting the instantaneous group money, so that may well have negated some of the arguments that he had with Peter Larwell before, because Larwell will be able to say to him, I've got an extra 30-40 million quid coming in from Champions League, you can possibly have that to improve your playing squad. So there's one argument to talk about the emotion that the fans feel about the disappointment, and as Martin... And we all know that will dissipate if results come. The first time they smash Rangers, everyone will forget about it, if they indeed do. And so with that in mind, the job that he did, and going back to Rangers, there's no indication that he won't do the same job. Now, Brendan Rodgers, the person in isolation to the job, I don't think he did a great job at Leicester. I think he let them down. And I think he's, in a way, moderately fortunate to be given an opportunity with Celtic again. And of course, if Dermot sees it as a challenge that he can galvanise Brendan Rodgers with, you've got to make good on this, mate, and get him motivated into that frame of mind, certainly he'll get the finances to do it from his salary, because I understand the salary he's getting is very different to what Celtic and previous clubs have paid in that sort of league. And we have to look at the two things in isolation. One, the job he did at Celtic, undeniable, great. He left when he left because an opportunity came up. And can you say that he didn't do his job whilst he was there? You can't say that. So everyone's got an opportunity and a right to leave a football club. And some people will say, well, that's not right, it's disloyal and it's unfair and you shouldn't have done it then, you shouldn't have done it this. It didn't stop Celtic from going on that particular season and achieving the outcomes that they were going to achieve when Brendan was there.
But you say he proceeded to let Leicester down.
Well, certainly not at the beginning. I certainly think that the last season with Brendan, from the moment they lost to Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup and having his swipe at the players and the need to change it up, through to what I think was a slightly laissez-faire, disenfranchised attitude from him, to the point where the club's got relegated. Now, he's not responsible for the last 6 or 7 games, or 8 games, or however many games Dean Smith had, but I certainly believe he's responsible for not getting the maximum. I think what we ended up with was not a situation where Brendan Rodgers was fired, has been alluded to. I think 2 people sat across a table looking at one another, suggesting they didn't fancy one another anymore. Brendan didn't fancy the job anymore, and as a result of that, the ownership didn't fancy him anymore, so they didn't fancy doing it together, so they parted company. And I don't think that's particularly admirable. I think you should go out of a job if you can. It's very easy for someone like me to say, leaving people wanting more, not wanting less.
And he didn't go out of Leicester leaving them wanting more of Brendan Rodgers, did he? That's fair. That's fair comment, actually.
No, and we've talked about this before, and most of what Simon's just said, I agree with. There are other parts of it. Brendan could say that they were very, very close. I know what's coming next, but they're very, very close to Champions League football for 2 consecutive years. Didn't fail then, got into Europe anyway, regardless of that. They did win the FA Cup, first time in history. So really, really, that was an excellent effort. The last season, I have to agree with Simon. You whatever's happened in the background, you are judged in your results, and the results weren't good enough really at the end of it. And as it turns out, Leicester went down, so he left. Then this is, I think overall it would be. I think that he did a fine job. Like if you win a trophy there at Leicester City. Now everything, I think I said this as well too. Everything is judged by 2016 standards. This is the point. Up until 2016, when Leicester won the Premier League, I would say that the team that I had was viewed as Leicester's best side. We won a couple of, we were finished in the top 10 for 4 consecutive years, and we won 2 trophies at the time. That was considered. But having said that, that was surpassed by the team that won the Premier League. So everything now around the stadium is judged on what you did in 2016. That's the nature of the business.
Sure. Well, later on, Brendan Rodgers will be presented to the media up in Glasgow. Simon, I know you'll come back strongly in this. I would have thought I pretty much know the answer. Should Rodgers at any time take time out to apologise to a section of the support today?
No, he should get on with his job. I mean...
Are they due an apology?
Well, whatever apology you give people that think they're due an apology will be never sufficient for them. So if Brendan Rodgers could put himself out front of Celtic Park in the stocks, let them throw tomatoes up and write his apology in blood, and no section of fans that didn't feel he's entitled to give him an apology still wouldn't be enough. The main apology that he should be giving is, if indeed an apology is warranted, is just get a winning team.
Yeah.
Don't get a winning team.
Yeah.
If he apologises and they start the team stinking, they start the season poorly, they're not going to be paying much of attention to his apology, are they?
Yeah.
He's got to do a good job.
Those who don't know some of the more extreme factions of the Celtic support might differ from that. Like the Green Brigade might want something of a nod in their direction. Remember how you left us, Brendan? Am I right, Martin?
Well, I think I get back to Simon's point. I think that apologies, they're almost pointless at some stage. You know that. Yeah, I think you might start your conversation today by saying, "Listen, left under those sort of circumstances."
But it would be disingenuous because he left because he wanted to leave. So what are you apologising for?
Yeah,
that you're lying. You left because you wanted to leave.